how does restricting carbohydrate affect our cholesterol?
Well, the effects of diet on lipoprotein metabolism and cholesterol metabolism has been an interest of mine, and it's more than a bit complex. But we've certainly done a lot of work in that area.
Performed with egg board money involving 42 people.
And I would start off by saying there are a couple markers that consistently change with low carb, and we talked about triglycerides go down consistently, and that's almost always followed by an increase in HDL, which is considered, both of those are considered very favorable in terms of your cardiovascular risk.
If you look at a meta-analysis, if you look at the balance of evidence, the rise in bad with increasing cholesterol intakes is much more than the rise in good. The meta-analysis of 17 different studies showed that dietary cholesterol increases the total to HDL cholesterol ratio, suggesting that the favorable rise in HDL fails to compensate for the adverse rise in total and LDL cholesterol, and therefore the increased intake of dietary cholesterol may indeed raise the risk of coronary heart disease.
Now, most people like to focus in on the LDL cholesterol, though, as a primary target for reducing risk for heart disease. And I have to say, what we've seen with LDL cholesterol concentration is quite variable.
But if you look at dozens of studies, all put together, covering hundreds of study subjects, we find that blood cholesterol concentration is clearly increased by added dietary cholesterol.
You will see some people decrease, perhaps dramatically. You'll see some people increase, and you'll see some people stay the same. So I think there's some genetics going on there. We've seen this in feeding studies where we feed people the exact same diet for 6 weeks, and we see very uniform changes in triglycerides and HDL, but LDL concentration is quite variable.
Here's an extreme example just to illustrate a year in the life of a study subject on and off eggs. First, they take him off eggs, putting him on a cholesterol-free diet, and his cholesterol plummets within just 3 weeks. Then they give him lots of eggs, and he's back in trouble, and stays there until they take the eggs away and put him back on the cholesterol-free diet, and so on and so forth, turning his high blood cholesterol on and off like a light switch made out of eggs.
Independent of weight loss?
Independent of weight loss. So under weight-stable conditions, this occurs. However, what is more consistent is more the qualitative features of LDL do improve consistently, which is consistent with what we know about the heterogeneity of LDL cholesterol. Those particles range from very small to larger, more buoyant particles, and it's the smaller, denser LDL particles that are more atherogenic, that are more highly associated with risk for heart disease.
And indeed, large LDL only raises heart disease risk 44% instead of 63% for the small LDL. Light, large, buoyant LDL still significantly increases our risk of dying from our #1 killer. This was for women, the same was found for men. Large LDL only increases risk of heart attack or death 31% instead of 44%.
For a number of reasons. They probably penetrate the arterial wall more easily, they're probably more prone to oxidation, and so forth. But some very good work has shown it's those particles that are most dangerous, and we consistently see a low-carb diet makes those LDL particles bigger, and the terms that have been used to describe those smaller particles, if you have more of those, you're considered a pattern B, versus a pattern A, which you have more of the larger fluffy LDL. So we consistently see people switch from pattern B to pattern A with a low-carbohydrate diet. So even if you happen to be one of the people that see perhaps a moderate increase in your LDL cholesterol level, it's almost always in the form of the larger, less atherogenic LDL particles.
Bottom line, as the latest review on the subject concluded, LDL cholesterol has been clearly established as a causal agent in atherosclerosis, regardless of size.
And I think there's other reasons that LDL cholesterol may go up.
Blood cholesterol concentration is clearly increased by added dietary cholesterol.
in people losing weight rapidly. And Steve made this observation many years ago.
Each of which, in truth and in fact, was determined to be bold.